So, good morning, everyone.
Morning, sir.
Very good morning. Anna. So, welcome to this artificial intelligence classes. Obviously, we're just trying to connect your third unit with this expert systems. And the reason is whatever you learned in third unit is what exactly is the basics for your expert system. At some point of time, we will call a modified third unit as an expert system at some point of time. That is the reason your third unit is mostly connected to an expert system. The reason is the inferences that you make from set of statements which will be done automatically, that we call it as an expert system. That is also an example of an expert system. So whatever we have studied in third unit is the basics that one should have to develop a static inference mechanism. But every time when you talk about an expert system, you are talking, your thinking or your exploration is to how do you build an expert system in the terms of having your dynamic parameters. So whatever you have studied in third unit is you take a statement. When you take a statement, the explicit meaning is that statement has either true or false. So the probability can be either 1 or 0. So based on that, you are trying to conclude something. We call that conclusion as an inference or hypothesis or whatever it may be. But that is not the case in real time. So what will happen in real time is you are asked to process text, or you were given an image. From that image you need to extract some text, and from that text you need to summarize or infer something. So whatever you studied in the first unit in the terms of a production system, so a modified production system will attract into export systems. Whatever you studied something about A star algorithm, which will predict the distance between the current node to the goal node, is one of the component of expert system. Whatever you studied in the terms of constraint satisfaction, where how do you predict the values by using substitution and just trying to have a consistency, is called as your expert system. So many expert systems basics we have studied. So the most important expert system is an inference mechanism, like how do you process the text and try to summarize what exactly there in the text, and how do you make some inferences. Just before coming to the class, I'm just going to the various expert systems that we have. We have an expert system where a small paragraph was given, a very simple paragraph was given, and you are asked many questions, where some questions you cannot answer with respect to the knowledge that you have. So like if somebody asks me like what can be, can you share something like that, I can say there is a small paragraph where that paragraph is talking about a king. Can you hear my voice?
Yes, sir.
Yes, yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay, okay, thank you. I will continue now. So the agenda of the class is very simple. Before getting into in the expert system, which is very important, the reason is you talk to your seniors or you take any challenge of artificial intelligence. So what is that you have to do is at least you need to build some apps which attracts to some export systems. Notice the reason, if you talk to your seniors who are in the fourth year, they have designed some AI systems to assist various apps. Like if I wish to travel from Bhimbaram to Delhi, there are many apps which will tell you this is the better path, this is the better path. But some futures, like I asked, I am interested to visit temples. So then your app will ask what type of temples you wish to visit, whether the temples has to be nearer the beach or something like that. So it is personalized apps will attract into AI. So the agenda of what exactly I am doing for the next 4 classes is I wish to uh, tell you what exactly is an expert system, not also not theoretically, but also will try to inculcate and create some ambience in developing these apps of AI. That's what my interest is. So that is the reason. Before getting into what the theory or whatever the insights that we have, I'm just trying to tell you like you have an expert system where in the expert system, like when we are talking about some expert systems, I have a story that I will just tell you 3 or 4 lines, and then there are a lot of inferences that we need to make. Like there is a king who is taking care of his emperor. This king is fond of gardens. So that is the reason most of the time he will spend time in gardens. And the surprising thing is he will talk to the plants and flowers, and he will water them. He will supply the fertilizer, and he will just monitor the garden. That is his passion. This is what the story is. There is a king. He is passionate about his garden. That is the reason he water his plants, he fertilize the plants, and he will talk to the plants, and he will also talk to the flowers. He will just try to think about how many days these flowers will flourish, and how many after how many days this will vanish. These flowers will, and if this even the lifetime of plants and something like that. So at some point of time, this king goes like he was aged and he has to find his successor. This is a story. So what is that the king has done is he has selected 10 or 11 people, and these flowers and plants has interacted with these 10 or 11, and these plants has selected one king as a successor. This is what the story is. So what is the inference of this story? Can somebody just tell me what exactly the inference of the story is? Can somebody unmute yourself and just I will repeat the story again then. So there is a king who is he's an emperor for a particular place. He is passionate about gardening. That is the reason he spends time in garden. He water the plants. He will supply fertilizers. He will also talk to the. He was so attached to the garden that he talks to the plants and flowers. Finally, because he is aged, he has to transfer his kingdom to some other king. So obviously, he has selected 10 to 11 people. And what is the surprising thing is these plants and flowers will talk to this 11, and they have selected one person as his successor. This is the story. What is the summary of the story? Somebody, what is the inference that you can get from this story? Can somebody just tell me? Can I, if I ask you something like, is the king is sensitive? What is your answer? Or since the king is taking care of the garden that much, he can take care of the entire kingdom? Can I take that inference? Or I have another question like the king has to rule. Instead of ruling, he is spending some time in garden. So obviously, he is not doing justice for his job. What can be the inferences? Can somebody just have a light on this, like a small discussion where whatever we are discussing will attract to some, what is that called as an expert system? So you can type the king likes the garden. So is the king is sensitive? Like you can type something. See the story that I just want to have. I will just repeat again. Is the king is sensitive, or since the yes king is sensitive, can we infer that he is sensitive from the statement that I told? You can type. Can we infer with 100% guarantee that he is sensitive based on the story that I told? Please type. The reason is this: some classes has to be interactive, some classes has to be thought provocative, and other classes no. Okay, we cannot prove. The reason is whatever we have studied in the third unit is we have some statements. If you wish to prove, we need to have some analogies and all things. So we cannot prove. Okay. So the second question that I have asked is, can I say that since the king is taking care of the garden this much, he is concentrating on the garden like this, so obviously can you assume that he will also take care of the kingdom scrupulously, carefully? Is it yes or no? Please type something. Yes. So I have another question now, which will contradict the earlier two. Something like, since the king is aimed at protecting the people and thinking about the people, since he is spending time in garden, can he is doing injustice to his work? No. See, somebody says if it is yes or no, what can be the basis of your answers? Because the story that I told is statements which will contain 3 to 4, but lot of inferences can be made with some probability. So what I wish to tell with this example is the difference between the third unit and what expert unit is the story. Because I have told a story which consists of 4 to 5 statements, and the inferences that you can make can be right or wrong. See, if I say somebody says king is sensitive, you can say yes, but what is the probability that he is sensitive? It's very difficult to tell. If somebody asks me, is the king, since the king is concentrating on the garden that much, he can take care of the people more than that, if that statement is right, it with what probability or with what quantification I can guarantee that statement is very important. The third statement I said is like the king functionality is to protect people and think about the people. Since he is spending time on the garden, uh, do does his activities will do injustice to his work? Means there is a chance that that can also happen, but what is the guarantee? Or you need to understand, if I supply more information to what actually you have, can you infer more? Can you get more content? That is what your expert systems will do. An expert system is a system which will predict something with some probabilities, whether it is an NLP system or any other system. You try to process statements, you try to process the statements in the terms of the meaning, in the terms of context. So can somebody tell me what is bull actually? Bull is an animal. What is bull? Is it an animal? or does this bull will have some different meaning somewhere? Both. What you said is right. A bull will have two different meanings. Bull is an animal. At the same time, somebody in stock market say that it is a bull. Obviously, your stock market price is getting increased every day. Bear means there is a chance that your stock market price will decline. So it depends, it depends in the terms of how do you use the term. The same way, when you try to use your natural language processing statements, you need to understand the meaning of the sentence with respect to the context in which you are using. When you use a bull in the context of stock market, you will have a different meaning, and when you use in general, the bull will have a different meaning. Apart from that, sentences which are uh, preceding the statement and sentence which are succeeding the statement also will have an impact on what statement you are having. So all this we call uh, it are one of the processing of an expert systems. So my interest of the next two classes or three classes is what are the components of expert systems, what are the design of expert systems, and the other interesting tool is what are the tools to develop an expert system. These three are very important. So if you wish to understand these three, I need to give some examples of the expert system that we have done in the first unit already. But the practical output of what we are discussing for this 4 to 5 classes is at least some of the students in this class who are participating in AI can develop some systems or can develop some apps related to artificial intelligence that your seniors are already done. So this is what the interest of the class is. Like in Python, you can develop the outline of an expert systems. Our expert systems has various tools because expert system has 6 phases. Every phase you have a tool. So you want to customize an expert system, you can use the already existing tools, and you can just integrate based upon the input and output you can have. So that is the basic understanding of the expert system. What I started is very important. The how I started with a story, and I asked about the pros and cons, what type of inferences that you can make, what type of inferences, whatever inferences that I asked, whatever the questions I asked are not straightforward. You cannot answer them with 100% guarantee. This is what actual situation is. Every time Marcus is a man, Marcus was a Pompeian, Marcus attacked Caesar, or Marcus something has done to Caesar, does Marcus is allowed? This type of questions will not happen in general in the terms of in real time. So what will happen is you have a large data, sometimes you have a small data. From large data you need to infer something, from small data also you need to infer something. From data or from inconsistent data you need to take some decisions. From some inconsistent data you need to take some inferences. This is what the basis of the entire expert systems is. So you need to think about expert systems or systems which process static and dynamic parameters that you have seen. Whatever you have seen in the first unit will just follow here also. So the overall objective of the class is to give some examples of an expert system. Try to tell you something about the functionalities, tell you something about the output of an expert system in the terms of parameters and other discussions. So that so once we discuss about the expert system, the next class will be the phases of expert systems. The next class will be the architecture of expert systems. The next class will be the tools of expert systems. By the time we complete all these expert system classes, you should be in a position to have a thinking about a small app, at least like a traveling app, which is more customized. See, I wish to visit some churches which are nearer some places. Like I need a church nearer places. I need to also see Jews. somewhere, some other, some places where I can visit. So, what is the probability that there is a train facility? What is the probability that there is a flight facility? Something like that. You need to customize apps which will predict something. This is the temperature in December. This is the temperature in January. But since the temperature variations are there like this in January, this is what it is. So once you go to somewhere in Sabarimala, these are the possible types of restaurants. These are the places where you can visit at this place. So many, when you have more functionalities for a particular system, or when you have more functionalities for a particular app, the usability of the app will increase when there is a reliability. When your data and when the prediction is almost right or almost nearing to right, then the usability of the system will increase. This is what your expert system says. You have a single functionality. I have an app which will give the trains from one place to other place. Some people will use, but you try to add some features which will help them. See, I wish to find all the trains from Bhimbaram to Chennai. I have the list of trains. Then based on the exploration that this person has done, if you say that in Chennai at Nungampakam these are just, just wait a minute. So at some place, if you just share the information regarding what type of climate will be there in the time and what type of restaurants are nearer to that place where you are just reaching. So all these features will attract more people to use that app. The same way, when the expert system functionalities are more, obviously the usability is more. It depends upon how do you reliably you are closing to that point. That point is we call it as an accuracy or right. So this is what it is. So we will see some examples. That these examples already we have seen, but we will just go to the examples very fastly. So we spoke about weather prediction many times. So I said when you try to predict the weather, you have statistical data. I have the data of the place, like you can consider a place like Vijayawada for the last 5 years. We call that 5 years data as a static data. 5 years data was there, and we call it as a static data which will not change with respect to time. And based on this, we can predict the weather. But if you wish to predict weather more precisely, I need to process something called as dynamic parameters which will change with respect to time. So can somebody unmute yourself, because this discussion was done in the when we starting here. Can somebody tell me what are the dynamic parameters that weather prediction I will talk about? Can somebody just unmute and just answer what are the dynamic parameters which will affect these variations of weather or climate?
Humidity.
Yes, then?
Height of the clouds from the land.
Yes, yes. The distance
Temper
between what you said is right then?
temperature.
Temperature, okay. So, can you tell me the outcome of output of weather prediction system? See, you can get something about temperature. What is the temperature at this moment? Whether you will get wind or not. If you have wind, what is the wind speed? You can also, there is a chance that you can also get something called as rain, amount of rainfall. Many other outputs are there. So what you said is right, the dynamic parameters are there. Can I say latitude is also a dynamic parameter which changes with time?
Okay.
Okay, see here now, there is a statement like when you move nearer to the poles, your temperature will increase. Can weather changes with respect to the air pressure you have?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So your weather prediction, it depends upon various static parameters, very important parameters like air pressure, and you said the distance between your earth to the nearest now cloud. Apart from that, it will if you have, you can take some input as precipitation and many other inputs you can take. Does the water resources that are available at the place, does it impact the weather at that place? Does the water resources that are available at that place, does this have an impact on this weather changes?
Yes, sir.
Yes. And the topology of that place, whether it was situated nearer to the hills or where exactly, what are surrounding that place, latitude and longitude. You identified some place called as Bimbaram. What was surrounding, all these topologies will change with respect to time. So all these are dynamic parameters. You can take precipitation, you can take humidity at this moment. Many other parameters will change. Or if people are working in this weather prediction, people talk about how far the sea is near. Many other parameters are there, and the distance between the sea to your place will change with respect to time, or it will not change.
Will not change. Okay.
Will not change. Okay. So can somebody now tell me, if I wish to generate or develop an expert system? So I have just tell you about what is the output of weather prediction. The output of weather prediction is, it can be the amount of rainfall, the temperature, the speed. In many other outputs can be there. I also said what is the input, what is the static input, what is the dynamic input for the system. Then can somebody tell me how do you measure the accuracy of any expert system, or how does the accuracy of any expert system will change? We spoke about what is the output of this weather prediction system. We spoke about static parameters that must be needed, because without this statistical data, your machine learning or AI algorithms will not work. I need some data, where if you have data, then only you can apply your machine learning algorithms. So you have static data, you need to also have dynamic parameters or dynamic data. So static data is a data which is with 100% guarantee. Dynamic data changes with respect to time. So can somebody tell me like how can you measure, or how does the accuracy of weather prediction system or any expert system will change? Can just tell me? Can somebody just unmute and just tell me uh, what type of how do you measure? Can I say like static data is compulsory, what I said is has to be taken? Can I say those mean if I accommodate many dynamic parameters, obviously can I say the accuracy of weather prediction will change, or when I use many dynamic parameters, the usability of the system will increase? Is the statement is right? When I try to accommodate more dynamic parameters into the system, like I have typed something now here, like when you consider air pressure, distance from your earth to cloud, precipitation, water resources, topology, and humidity at this moment, when you consider all these parameters, does the usability of the system will increase? Can just type something here, like when you have more dynamic parameters that has to be considered, is it better to have more number of dynamic parameters or less number of dynamic parameters? Can just type something in the chat box. When you design an expert system, is it better to have more number of dynamic parameters or less number of dynamic parameters? I said dynamic parameters are parameters which should change with respect to time. Can somebody just unmute yourself and answer this query? Is it better to have more number of dynamic parameters or less number of dynamic parameters for having an accurate weather prediction system? See, then if the number of dynamic parameters increases, obviously the system usability will also increase. Maybe at some point of time, if you consider one or two dynamic parameters, the weather prediction may not be accurate, because weather prediction depends upon various other aspects. When you consider air pressure or distance from the earth to nearest cloud, maybe you can develop your expert system, but the accuracy that you can get is not nearer to what exactly will happen. So the statement I'm just making is, if you accommodate more number of dynamic parameters into the system, then there is a chance that whatever prediction that you are doing at real time will be more closer to what actually happening. So it's very difficult for an expert system to process many dynamic parameters, but when you process more dynamic parameters, you will get more accuracy. This is what the outcome is. So coming to your stock market here, so we have many expert systems that we have seen this, like in stock market also we have some parameters and dynamic parameters. If I have the stock market variations for the last 2 years of TCS or Reliance, you can predict something. But stock market variations will change with respect to time. So can somebody just tell me what are the parameters that will change with respect to time in the terms of stock market? At this moment, is there any demand for your sanitizers? At this moment, the demand for sanitizers is increasing or decreased?
Increased.
Increase.
Increased. Yes, the stock market, uh, the dynamic parameters that your stock market has to process is your supply and demand. I will type something here. Just a minute. So your dynamic parameters for stock market can be your supply and demand. What are the other factors where your stock market can change with respect to time? What are the other parameters where you can accommodate into stock market? Is there any sentiment that was involved in stock market? See, last time you have invested something in TCS and you got some profits. Does that sentiment will help you to invest again in TCS? Yes or no? Does the investor sentiment will change with respect to time? See, you have invested into Reliance and you have arrived at losses. There is a sentiment for you that when I invest something in or Reliance, there is a chance that I will get a loss. So that is the reason you choose other stocks where you can invest. Does the sentiment will change with respect to time? See,
Yes, sir.
yes. Does your interest rates can be called as a dynamic parameter where your stock market values can change? Can the political decisions that people will take can change the stock markets?
Yes, sir.
Yes, all these are dynamic parameters that has to be considered while designing the systems. News articles. I have an article where HCL is starting some enterprise in Vijayawada. Obviously, people are more interested to buy the stock of HCL at some point of time. In people who are residing in Vijayawada, and many other things. Health of the company in the terms of assets, liquidity, and any other company related issues. Many other things will affect. My interest is when you try to design something about an export system, you must have this static data. Once you have the static data, you can just apply the basic machine learning or deep learning algorithms. But some of the data which will be very crucial, when you accommodate this type of parameters into the system, then only people will believe that whatever system that you have developed is a robust and reliable system. I need a reliable system where people try to believe, because you are trying to predict the stock market, what will happen tomorrow. It's very difficult. You need to design a system which will predict what is the stock price of TCS tomorrow, and you are trying, and this analysis that you are doing, and this is what your stock market price tomorrow, that's what the prediction that you are doing. It's very difficult for the people to believe that type of systems. So when people try to believe this type of systems, I need to have more number of dynamic parameters where this political decisions and news articles from prominent publishing houses has to be processed by the system, and the sentiment or your stock market will change with respect to time. You need to process these dynamic parameters and static parameters to develop an expert system. This is what my entire conclusion is. So when you wish to develop an expert system, you must have static parameters, that is mandatory, and you must also have the dynamic parameters. See, news articles are there. How far this news article can impact the stock market? How far the supply and demand can impact the stock market? How far the sentiment of the investor can change the stock market. So you need to find out what is the impact. That's what I started with the story. That is the reason I have started with the story today. So what is the impact, and what type of impact it is? Is it significant? See, in stock market, when people try to have a research on stock market, they will have a forum called as Yahoo Financial Forum, where people who are having at least one share or one stock, they will try to have, there is a platform where you can talk and people will try to answer the queries. So based on the communication that will happen at that platform, also the stock market will change. And surprisingly, with respect to the tweets that uh, Twitter is giving in the terms of hashtags with respect to stock market, the sentiment of the investor will change. So when you try to design an expert system, you need to think about what exactly are the dynamic parameters, and you need to also try to find out what can be the impact of each dynamic parameter on the stock market. So that is very important. When you have that type of discussion and that type of analysis, then it's very easy for you to design a new system. So as stock market is concerned, you need to just try to find out how much uh, amount of change that will happen to a stock market if I consider a parameter called as investor sentiment. How much change the sanitizers, not only that oximeters and your vaporizers are in a great demand now. So what will happen if the supply and demand changes? So how does the stock market is varying based on the supply and demand? You need to study. So once you study all these parameters and then try to proceed to generate an expert system, obviously that system is robust and it is adaptable and so many people can use this. So before getting into CC systems, I have some questions that has to be taken, and then we'll close the session because it's already 9:42. So what are the statistical parameters for predicting weather? I said the statistical parameter can be the data that is pertaining to that place for the last 1 year or 1 month or 2 years or 3 years. So the interest of keeping this is static parameters will not change with respect to time. So based on the statistical data only, your machine learning or deep learning or AI systems will work. This is the reason I kept this here. And what are the dynamic parameters for stock prediction? That's what I said. It is supply and demand, or it can be the investor sentiment, it can be interest rates, it can be the political decisions, it can be the news articles in prominent houses, and health of the company or company related activities. Even you can read an article where the communication that will happen between the employees can also change the stock market value. So obviously many other parameters are there. This is what the class is. So tomorrow also we'll discuss some important application, then we try to understand the phases. This is what the next class are. Once I complete the applications of export systems in detail, so what is the importance of that applications is, once you see the application, there is every chance that who are sitting in the class can have their own applications, can think about what type of application that they can start. So the next class most probably I can take this applications, but the next class will focus on what are the functions of an expert system, what are the phases of an expert systems in general. Once you want to if you wish to understand this part, you need to understand what is an expert system, what are the dynamic parameters that will change, what is the outcome of an expert system, something like that, then we'll get back to this. But again, today also just try to answer this, and please leave before just leaving this hall, please answer this and then just try to leave. It's a simple quiz where you have five multiple choice questions you can answer within 1 or 2 seconds. Please answer this before. So I just try to download the attendance. Attempt this quiz and then you can unmute yourself if you have any queries, or you can just join in the other class. Please attempt this quiz. If you have any doubts, please unmute yourself. Once the quiz was completed, you can leave and you can join in some other class.